We are hopeless, selfish creatures, and we need a savior.
She was a total heathen.
All right, we're doing a podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of an Exmo.
And an Evermo.
Walk into a bar. I'm Kate. This is my co-host Erika, and we are recording from Land of a Thousand Hills Coffee Shop in Daybreak, South Jordan, Utah.
Yeah, we love it here. As you can see, we have lots of yummy food, and there's just really great people here, really great vibes. So we love shooting here. They have wonderful drinks, all the stuff.
Including the alcohol.
Including the
'cause We would not come unless there was alcohol.
Well, it's called Walk into a Bar. I suppose it is a coffee bar, but alcohol is kind of the prerequisite for our
Amen,
podcast.
sister.
And,
Amen.
and it's just fun. So what are we talking about today, Kate?
Well, this is kind of more time sensitive in that we just had General Conference this last weekend. It was
that was a real hoot, guys.
Yeah, 195th semi-annual general conference of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
And what was interesting about this one is it was Kate's last general conference, and it was my first general conference and last. Maybe not last.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
making that up. We
yeah.
may go back. I'm totally kidding. We may go back, and we didn't actually go inside. We mostly, you showed me the grounds. We walked around. We talked about some of the things that were happening there. We did talk to a couple of people outside, just a few. I talked to sister missionaries just for a quick second. And there was just one lone protester because all the protesters
That
were
happened
there
the day before.
because there were so many protesters downtown.
That's right. Well, isn't technically my last general conference, but it was my last general conference at Temple Square because I left. I think this was maybe my fourth general conference since I've left the church. And at first, I know I was talking to you about this, Erica. I was like, we need to talk about general conference. And you're like, yeah, sure. I'm like, no, Erica, we need to talk about general conference. I don't think you understand what a big deal it is. And it really is. It's a huge deal for, the more orthodox, true believing members. It's a huge deal. I'm sure general conference doesn't matter to some people, but it does to a lot of people who are still in the church.
Yeah. So, and I didn't know too much about it as an Ever Mormon when I moved here a few years ago and I was working in Utah Valley. I did hear some people at work talk about it, sort of buzz about it. Oh, we're going to general conference this weekend. We're going to general conference. And so I had to ask, what is that? And then they told me. So I still don't have a whole idea, but do you want to tell them exactly what general conference is?
Yeah. So general conference started 195 years ago in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It actually started on a special day. This last Sunday was April 6th, which is an important day in church history because the church was organized on April 6th, 1830, and it's Jesus's birthday. Not December 25th, like everybody thinks.
Okay.
Because Joseph Smith received revelation saying, everyone else is wrong. I'm right. It's April 6th, which just so happens to be the day that we organized the church. So I'm sure members
convenient.
So I'm sure members of the church were really happy. Oh, we have another conference Sunday on Jesus' birthday. I know I was excited about it, but not so much anymore.
Did you say happy birthday, Jesus, yesterday?
I don't think I did.
Okay.
Bad
Mormon. Bad Mormon. Bad Mormon.
Not a Mormon anymore. Anyhow, it started in Joseph Smith's day. There were 6 members. Guess what gender they were?
I don't need to phone a friend for this one. I'm gonna guess they were men.
What? Yeah, you're pretty good. There were 6 men.
No way.
Including Joseph Smith. They're like, we're gonna start a church back on April 6th, 1830. And they've been having these semi-annual general conferences ever since. And they typically happen the first weekend of April and the first weekend in October. And it is just a great big indoctrination session where you get to listen to 2 hours Saturday morning, 2 hours Saturday afternoon, 2 hours Saturday evening, 2 hours Sunday morning, and 2 hours Sunday afternoon for a total of 10 hours of indoctrination extravaganza. It's so fun.
Yeah, it sounds like a real blast, and I'm so sad that I spent the morning at a brunch with a bunch of Exmos, drinking some wine and just being silly.
Well, we had a great time.
We did have a great time. I do want to say, as we drove up, so we did a trying moment for me yesterday.
So check it. We're now at, oh, you can't tell very well, but we're at the conference center. Check it out. We're at the conference center. Erica, let me tell you about this.
Okay.
So across the street is Temple Square. It's got the temple, which is being remodeled. That domey thing is called the Tabernacle. When the saints,
That's the
That's
tabernacle.
the tabernacle.
Is that where they sing?
That's where the Mormon Tabernacle Choir got started. I think they finished it the year I went on my LDS mission in 1999.
Here, this thing?
They finished this monstrosity, and they're proud of it because it's big and open and spacious inside. I know you haven't had enough of this today, so we could come back sometime and you can go inside.
I will say, like, just walking around, it is a very pretty space. It's just creepy.
Because it is.
Because it is.
It's just hella creepy.
Because you know what is happening here. And everyone's got that. The Mormon
Let's do it
sheen.
right here.
Which is a little bit wild. I've gone back and I posted some videos and used the Book of Mormon's soundtrack at the end.
Yeah.
The first time I did it, triggered isn't exactly the right word. I worked in Mormon Central, as I've mentioned. Triggered is a very specific word that means a specific thing, but I was hit in a way that was like, when I posted it and I heard it for the first time, they sing at the end, the Book of Mormon. And it's like this saccharine, drippy, the ick fest. And I heard it and I was like, and it reminded me of where I used to work. And that's the feeling. That's the feeling here, guys.
For me, it was a little uncomfy being surrounded by so many people and thinking, oh God, this is who I used to be. This is what I used to believe. I would be desperate to go to this building to get tickets from your bishop or stake president or whatever. I was desperate to go to this building. Like, look what a good person I am.
But now I feel like you should celebrate. Like, what did you do today? You had some wine.
I had some
You hung out with some cool people.
Did.
You did some awesome lives and connected, really connected, not like this. Hi.
Yeah.
Really connected with people, and you can do other things. You showed your corn shoulders.
My corn shoulders.
You had a beautiful stroll in the sunshine.
Oh my God, look at spring, everybody. I love spring.
Can you imagine being trapped in that building right now?
Boo!
Oh.
Boo!
So you should feel happy and liberated.
And
You've been liberated.
Yeah, so that was our general conference. It was
something. And so here's a weird thing. Like, I am like, you're deconstructing. I have my own like tiny little touch point with the Mormon Church, where I was working in a place that was about 85% Mormon.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I'm deconstructing. Mm-hmm. I'm processing. Weirdly, somehow, like, I've been traumatized by this organization. And one of the things, we talked a little bit about this, but like, as we were driving up, there were hordes of people just kind of flocking to the church. But my experience, like driving up to that and seeing that, is one of what I can only describe as ick, which sounds really mean. But we were talking about like what that means. And before we started the podcast this morning, and Kate said, I remember going there and sitting through all those talks, and this is also gonna make me tear up a little bit because it's so crappy. But you said, I remember going to those and walking away feeling like complete shit.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that's the messaging that they give you. And the analogy that I used for it when we were walking up, and I had just this feeling of it. It's so visceral and palpable to me. So everyone's walking up to conference. They're in their Sunday best. All the boys and men are in sort of missionary-looking clothes.
Yeah,
They're
that was
suits,
funny. It was funny. You saw one kid on the street who was like missionary age. She's like, "Oh, look, there's a missionary," and I'm like, "No, Erika, there's no companion there. Of course he's not a
Can't be
missionary.
missionary.
And he
I
doesn't have
don't
the
know
tag,
these
and his
things.
hair's a little too long. That is not a missionary.
You would not pass muster. But they were in the missionary looking clothing that you would recognize from the play, The Book of Mormon, or if you know anything about the Mormon church.
Yeah.
And all the women look very much alike. The new garments have not arrived in Utah for the most part yet. So they are in dresses that cover them very very conservatively dressed. Most of them have long hair. You're not allowed to wear pants in the church, in the temple, as a woman.
Oh, no.
And everyone's walking up, and the way I'll describe it first, and then I will show you the face. I describe it as it's like looking at a bunch of people who are in some pretty serious pain and took a fistful of Valium. So they all look like this.
For those of you who are just listening, imagine what it would look like if you were in a lot of pain and had a fistful of Valium. That was Erica's face.
And as I was like describing that to Kate and saying it, I felt a little bit mean because my intention isn't to make fun of these people. And we were talking about it today. I realized what you are describing is what I am feeling when I look at them. Yeah. All of these people who attend this conference all weekend, who are told, hammered over the head, you suck, you are a piece of shit, you need the church. And this is wonderful and beautiful and divine and holy and sacred. So then you have this really discordant framework, paradigm, something. And that is what I'm seeing in the people. That's what I saw when we were driving up. This like pained awfulness mixed with, but I'm supposed to love this. This is very holy.
And you're going to get more doses of that pain and that awfulness. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I ended a journal conference session or weekend thinking like, okay, this is going to help me feel better. And like I said, just feeling like shit, because every message, I had a friend say that every message is just laced with this feeling of inadequacy. You can never do enough. You're never, ever, ever, ever going to be enough. So keep coming back, because maybe you'll get there one day, but probably not.
Well,
let's say for the next life.
And that is the practice of a drug pusher, an abuser, and a cult, which is, we've talked about the church in that framework. Lots of times the church needs to keep people coming back. They need that power, and they need that 10%. Most of all, they need your 10% to continue to enrich themselves. So it's a pretty awful thing to witness. Do we want to talk a little bit about?
Well, I would.
She's got a lot to say.
I got a lot to say. I have a whole. I have a structure of kind of what I wanted to talk about. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the history of General Conference, and then I want to talk a little bit about what you can expect in General Conferences, and then we're going to address some of the more controversial talks that have been given in General Conference. So, just for starters, General Conference is directed for everyone around the world, all members of the world. Before the advent of the internet, like you get the talks like in the Ensign, which is the church published magazine, or when I was a kid growing up, we lived in Southern California for a little while, and we would get all dressed up and we'd go over to the Stake Center, which is like the church building for a lot of different congregations, and we would have it broadcast by satellite. And then once the internet came along, then now you can stream it on YouTube, you can listen to it online. In Utah here, it's always been on KSL, which is the church. It's the church broadcasting company. It's owned by the church.
So kind of like Deseret News or something.
Yeah, like Deseret News, but
propaganda.
It's propaganda is really what it is. So growing up, I was like, yes, it's Pajama Sunday, because you don't have to dress up to sit and watch conference at home. And every family does it differently. Some families are very rigid in the way that they do things. Others are like, we don't have to listen to conference. We'll just go to church next week. My family is very, very, very Orthodox.
No way.
Yes. We were the type that would listen to all 10 sessions of General Conference. Unless
sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, no, but we would make
pajamas.
it. But we would wear pajamas, but we would make it fun. Children would need to get the indoctrination while they were young. And so you want the children to sit and listen to this. So some people would some people would just like they're like coloring books that you can like, ooh, let's design the different ties that you see from the speakers, because most of them were men. And of course you're going to design the ties that you would see the speakers have. Or you would play like bingo every time somebody mentioned this or prayer, they talked about this. To make it even more fun, like the ones around Easter or Halloween, because that's candy season. And I did this as a mom too, and it was so cringy that I did this, but I'd have like all of these different bowls of candy, like the jelly beans in this one and the robin eggs in this one, and I'd have like a little label on it. Anytime they mention prayer, come and get some candy, or anything. Anytime they would mention this, come and get the candy. So you're rewarded for listening to these good things. It's just you're definitely gaslighting and conditioning these kids to be like, oh, when I hear these things, I get this good yummy sugar rush. It's awful. Some families would go so far. My family never did. Some families would go so far as to like set up a tent in their home, because in the Book of Mormon there's a story of King Benjamin. You know King Benjamin.
I do know King Benjamin. He's fantastic. He's a comedian and probably know who you're talking about.
Because he's fresh. We're not talking about
pretty fresh.
We're not talking about the fresh King
Oh,
Benjamin.
sorry, wrong guy.
We're talking about the old King Benjamin, who was in the Book of Mormon, and he was this old guy, and he's like, I've learned a lot in my life, and he would get on this big tower, and he would preach to all of the people, and they would all set up their tents, and they would face it toward him like, So I know that there have been Mormon families that would put tents in their living room and watch the
Actually,
conference.
that's kind of fun. I could say that's kind of fun. If
cute.
I think maybe we used to set up a tent in the front yard to do camping. I don't know if we ever set it up in the house, but definitely not to watch.
Not to listen to a bunch of old patriarchal, racist, misogynistic men speak to you.
Let me think about it. No. So we have notes for all of our podcasts. We usually go way off script.
We do,
and sometimes I don't even look, but we pause for a second, as we do sometimes. And I was like, where are we in the notes? The first thing, you guys, the first thing I see in the notes is, since it was boring as fuck, parents had to get creative to find ways, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I had a fun time writing these notes.
This must feel very liberating.
So cathartic.
After having to live through this shit fest for all the years of your life. One, to be able to drink yesterday and hang out with a bunch of really cool ex-Mormons at a really nice brunch. And then to go there and hang out outside with the daffodils and in the sunshine and not be stuffed into that horrible church. So I'm happy for you. I know it's a little...
Thank you. Me too. But no, they like to steal joy from you. So they would cram as many people as they could into first the tabernacle, the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, which has now been rebranded as the conference. What do they call it? The Choir Conference Center or whatever. They've rebranded it because they're no longer in the tabernacle. And it has the name Mormon, and you can't have the name Mormon because it's bad. Anyway.
Wait, what I do want to say one quick thing, because I don't often, so I want to. I don't have a lot of good things to say about the Mormon church. And I don't like most of the music. When I hear it, it is like nails on a chalkboard. Sure. I am like, ugh, it's very saccharine and like chintzy sounding. But the Mormon Tabernacle Choir is amazing.
Hella talented.
They're hella talented. Really amazing. They're beautiful to listen to. So there is a thing that I will praise the church for.
My dad is also very talented in that he sang with the director, Craig Jessup, back in college. Like, very, very musical, great guy. So yes, hooray, Craig Jessup. He did a great job with the choir. Wonderful guy.
Go on. They've moved it now.
Yeah. So they used to do the conference in the tabernacle, which is this dome-shaped building I showed you on Temple Square yesterday. Yes. But it could only fit like 3,100 people or so, or 3,500 people. So not very many people come in person. So in about 1999, 2000 is when they opened that conference center that you and I saw yesterday.
How many people fit in there?
They could fit 21,000 people in there. Yeah.
How many people go?
They used to fill the place. I don't think they do anymore. Why would it be that they can't fill the conference center anymore? It's probably because people aren't going to conference anymore. But
And hopefully leaving the church if they know it's good for them.
but I remember when the conference center was dedicated and they started hosting these things there. They were so proud of it. They're like, we could fit a 747 in this building. Like it's a big ass building.
I saw the outside.
And no, on the inside is really pretty too. Like there are no beams to obstruct your view. It's a really great architectural design. It's wonderful, good acoustics, really great. But they just indoctrinate as many people as they can get there. You have to get a ticket from like your bishop or your stake president or somebody local will get you a ticket where you can go inside and see this conference. They are free.
Look at, she reads my mind.
I read her mind.
Yesterday I asked her because we talked about maybe like trying to go inside, and I was like, oh well, of course they charge for it. She was like, this is the one thing
The one thing that
really want people to come. So they're like, I mean, I'm sure they would if they could.
They
but
would if
they
they could.
really want people to be there because it looks good.
Mhm.
So it's the one thing you can do for free as a Mormon.
Yes, and it actually gives you a little bit of kickback because those times when I did get my conference tickets, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at me, I'm so special.
I'm so
I get
pious.
I get to go and show everybody how pious I am. That I get to go to the conference. Thank you.
Can I say I'm gonna zig for one quick second?
We don't do that.
We never do. We stay right on track. We read exactly, and that's how we do things. That's how we are. That's how we roll. So before when you. I have told you this, but I'm going to tell them this. I don't know if you remember when we first started hanging out, and I was still working at this place in Utah Valley, and I mentioned to a woman there because I worked with your ex-husband. I said, I'm Kate and I are hanging out, or Kate's ex-husband. I won't say his name, but we're hanging out now, and it's crazy because she knew that we had met and didn't really like each other, and that I didn't really like your husband. He didn't like me.
We have something in common.
And she said, and she's Mormon, this woman that I was talking to, and she said, what? She said, I don't really like her. And I said, I think she's changed a lot. I don't know her from before, but I knew like of her, and we didn't like each other then.
No.
But now we do. And she said, no, she's so pious and self-righteous. And I was like, what? Like, which I knew of you, I guess, before, but I was like, she is not like that anymore. Which is funny to hear you like talk about how you felt at that time. Like, oh, I'm so wonderful.
Well, and I don't think I'm alone.
No,
I'm sure there's so many.
All of them.
It's just a competition to see who could be more pious.
I see it. I see it all the
It's
time.
ingrained in you. You don't recognize it until you leave it, and you're like, holy cow, holy shit. I was super duper pious, and I don't want to be that way anymore.
And I see that in conversations all the time. And I'm having one like in real time right now on TikTok with someone who keeps commenting on some of my stuff. And there are other people that chime in at different points and say, oh, this was me. It was so embarrassed. Now I'm so embarrassed that I behaved that way. And that I did have a rod up my ass, or I was so self-righteous and so pious. And then like seeing it in real time with a person who doesn't make any sense and is being very self-righteous, very judgmental, very condescending.
Yeah.
So it is not uncommon. It is not something that is unique to Kate. It's pretty much, I would say, across the board for most of the people that I've engaged with. It is not just you.
No, there are some, and I will make this point every time. There are some phenomenal members of the church.
So many.
I have friends that are still part of the church, and I love them for them, and they love me for me, and they're just good quality people. So I think there's some people that can look past the BS. That comes from the church. Sure. But anyway, back to some of the things about General Conference. We're going to do a history of it. Just to tell you a little bit about my life growing up. Some families didn't require the kids to listen to 10 hours of conference. And even when I was younger, I don't think I had to, because my parents were smart. I know that's like cruel and unusual punishment to force a child to sit to 10 hours of boring ass shit. But maybe I would listen to the Saturday session or Sunday session when I was little. And then as I got older, it was expected of me to listen to all 10 hours and take copious notes. So some families are like, man, whatever. We like Ryan's like, we just did jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
But no, I would take the copious notes
Yeah.
with the bullet points and everything, and then go back and read over those again and again and again. And any time in my life where I was like, something's wrong, something's off, I need help. I mean, therapy was not the number one response, or it was just like, let me go to the brethren, and I would listen to General Conference. Or I'd reread the talks to see how I could. It was just like going back for that pain.
How'd that work out for you?
It exacerbated.
I'm sorry.
It exacerbated my
of
mental
course.
health challenges.
Of course, because when you're feeling shitty about yourself, because it's like when you have it again, like when you have an abuser, and then and there is pattern there. Women will go to that person as their rock, as their comfort. And men too. It's usually, I mean, I think more often women are abused, but men are also abused. People of all genders are abused. But you're told you need me, and that is the last thing that you needed. Or a drug, that is the thing. And you, with a drug, I feel like at least you realize this isn't good for me, but it's going to make me feel good, so I'm going to do it. With the church, there's that added layer of deception because the church is the thing that is doing all the harm and all the damage, and at the same time saying we're your cure. It'd be like, I guess maybe if a doctor is prescribing a pain pill or something, knowing that they're getting a kickback. And knowing that it's not helping the person, but the addiction is helping them line their pocket. So it's that.
That's pretty much what that
and
is.
It's horrible, and I'm sorry.
But it was part of my life. It was part of who I was, and I'm healing and doing things like going to conference center with you yesterday, or just even walk around was so cathartic and healing.
And it
I'm
was
so
really
happy.
fun.
And it was so fun.
We can do this here because we're not on TikTok. We saw a big statue of Brigham Young. We told him to go fuck himself.
Yeah, we did.
It was awesome. And then I got kicked off of TikTok.
She got blocked on TikTok because we're like, Brigham Young's such a son of a bitch. And look
fuck you. And TikTok was like, oh, hell no. We were live. And I can still be on TikTok, but I can't do a live for like 7 days or something like that. But we can do it on our own podcast. Fuck you, Brigham Young.
Fuck you, Brigham Young.
And I will also say specifically about that statue, he's standing up on this giant pedestal. Thank you. And then at his feet, sort of adoring him and condoning his behavior is a native person. I don't know what tribe, maybe Shoshone, maybe Ute. It didn't specify, of course, sitting there at his feet, which is a total whitewashing of history because he was a genocidal, racist bigot who said if you have a drop of brown blood in you, you have the mark of Cain, and any white person who has an intimate relationship with a person with a drop of brown blood should be murdered.
Just die on the spot. Yeah.
So anyway, it was nice that we get to say that here when we got cut off yesterday.
Yeah.
And we had a good time.
We had a great time. We really did. Anyhow, I want to tell you a little bit more about what to expect in conference because we didn't go inside, we didn't listen to it, and I'm also at the stage of my life where I don't want to listen to it. I know there are some ex-Mormon podcasters who do. They do because, and this is important to know, the reason that ex-Mormons are still so concerned about what's said in conference is because it affects their family, and then that therefore affects their relationship. So in the past, over the pulpit, like the leaders of the church have called ex-Mormons like me, people who have like gone off. We've been called apostates, lazy learners, lax disciples, patty cake taffy pullers, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean.
That sounds vaguely sexual to me.
Probably is. And just this
Quit pulling your taffy. Sorry, just joking.
But just this last conference, I think it was on Saturday, one of the general authorities said that we are just mere footnotes in the history of the world. But I look at that
So
and I'm
Jesus-y.
No, but I'm proud to be a footnote now. I mean, it could sound really dehumanizing. Like we're not even human; we're just footnotes, right?
And you had a great thing to say about this.
But footnotes, if you and I didn't even come up with it. It was someone else that I saw online that said, like, when you're reading something that's a lot of information and you want to get more information that's not included in that text, where do you look? You look in the footnotes. You get more information, more enlightenment, more understanding from the footnotes. Unfortunately, this church over the pulpit is telling the leaders of the church not to look at the footnotes. Oh, and speaking of, I left the church in July 2023. So my first conference was October 2023. And during this time, the president President Nelson, who's now 180 years old or whatever, and he's 100. He said during this talk called Think Celestial, he said over the pulpit, never take counsel from those who do not believe. And you could look at this and say, wait a minute, I'm not to be trusted because I left the church. So, and think of that as a member of the church. Like, oh, wait, my doctor's not a member of the church and he's giving me counsel. Should I not accept his counsel because he's not a member of the church? Oh, no, it's for spiritual matters. Okay, but what about those kids that are in family where maybe dad's a member of the church and mom's not? And being told from your leaders of the church,
Don't listen to her.
Yeah, don't listen to mom, or vice versa. Don't listen to dad, or don't listen to your family members or your teachers or whoever. Don't listen to any members of authority if they aren't members of the church. And I think, how fucked up is that? That's so divisive. It's taking families, tearing them apart because we are exercising our agency, which they say is like the greatest gift you've ever been given is your agency, your right to choose.
Except don't choose.
But don't choose. And another one of those things said over the pulpit in years past was doubt your doubts by Elder Uchtdorf. I'm sorry to insult the German accent. He was one of my favorites.
She's an actor. She can do German. She can do German. She can do accents. Germans too.
Germans too. But no, he was one of my favorites. I loved Elder Uchtdorf. And so when he said doubt your doubts, I was like,
that kind of sounds like Schwarzenegger.
Schwarzenegger.
Doubt your doubts. It's not a tumor.
It's not a tumor. Doubt.
Oh my God, what is wrong with us?
We might have had a little bit of spirits, a little alcohol in us.
No, I think we have the spirit.
Yes, I think we do have
right
the
now.
spirit. So, no, but I remember during this talk that he gave, just to doubt your doubts before you doubt your faith. And I was like, oh, well, I like him. And he's telling me, so these doubts that I have, stuff.
Stuff them down. Don't think.
Just believe. And if you do have doubts, it's because you're not good enough.
And what you just said about all of the messaging that they give families is, we've talked about this a little bit before. The church says that they're super about the family.
Yeah.
They have Monday nights are family nights at the performing arts organization where I worked. When I first got there, I was doing the marketing, and we had some shows booked for Mondays, family shows. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a nightmare to try to sell. They were like, no, actually. And this is family night. They'll come out. And they were right. They did. I had to learn that as marketing director here. That is, so the church says that it's all about families and keeping them together and family time, which is maybe a quarter to a half true. If the family is fully Mormon.
Oh, sure.
Then it's for keeping families together. If the part of the family is not Mormon, it is for ripping them apart. And when there are people who are members of the church in General Conference given this messaging that their relatives are lazy, whatever else they're going to say about them, that they're apostates or footnotes or irrelevant. Yeah. All of those things serve to rip families apart. And they serve to do two things: to either say, you need to get rid of those people so they don't taint you, because it is kind of contagious when someone leaves and thinks other people start thinking. It's catchy. And then it also, it serves for those family members to try to bring those people back. Yeah. Because you don't want to lose part of your family. So you tell them, and you've experienced this over and over, like, this is breaking our hearts. You're so wrong. We need you to come back. And that is, the church has kind of deployed its minions again to do that. And that happens here in General Conference.
And it happens a lot around General Conference. I remember this too. I have a sister-in-law who is a Nevermo, like you, never been a member. And I remember around General Conference time, I would send her messages saying, hey, I love you. General Conference is coming. Please come. Please listen in. This is where you can find it. So I know she listens to this podcast. So to my dear sister-in-law, I'm sorry for what I said and did when I was Mormon. I ought to respect your boundaries. And
what did she say to you? I want to know.
She didn't.
What?
She didn't respond. She just kind of ignored it. And I think that was probably a wise choice. Had she tried to push back a little bit, I may have been hurt. And it probably would have put a divide in our relationship,
Good for her, but also there's one of the things where, like, a lot of times the conversations feel very one-sided because you at the time and I feel like what I see from Mormons is a lot is I can say this to you. I can say this over and over. I can say the things to you, and when you say them to me, I'm persecuted.
Right.
You say them to me, and that's not okay. And she knew that that would put a rift in the relationship. And you, at the time, not to put you on the spot right now, I know that you're
No.
changed, but at the time, you felt like it was your duty and your right to say that to her. But if she had said anything back to you,
Oh, I would have been the victim. Easy.
which is like, it's so one-sided and it's so unfair. Have you guys had a and I'm not, I hope I'm not like, do we need is that okay?
Yeah, I think that's okay. That's okay.
Have you guys talked about it? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I don't think we have. And I think I'd love to. So if you're listening, sister-in-law, I'm not going to call your name out. If you're listening, I would love to talk about this sometime.
Yeah, she's a changed woman, believe me.
Although we have a great relationship.
good,
I've always
good.
loved her. And I think it's going to be good. Yay. Yay. Anyway, I do want to talk a little bit more about what happens in General Conference. It's not just listening to dry ass talks by old white patriarchal men, though that's the vast majority of it. There are some exciting things. You know, we get to hear from the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, and every now and then we'll have a chance to hear from like a children's choir, and they're so cute, or the missionary training choir, and look at them, they're so righteous, or an institute choir. In fact, I was on my mission when they had their first conference since in the new conference center, and I was like thousands of miles away watching this at a stake center, because that's what you did, and watching that. And a lot of my institute friends, because I went to institute, which is, you know, indoctrination when you're in college.
Yes,
I'm seeing a lot of
I'm familiar with it.
Yeah. You going me on that college campus that is not BYU. But I
Shall
remember,
not be named.
But when I watched that, I was just so envious. Like, oh wow, it's not fair. Like, Heavenly Father, why did you send me on mission now when I could have been on General Conference? I could have been with all of my institute friends singing, but no, I'm here serving a mission instead. Yeah,
You just pray harder.
I should
Go back to your scriptures,
I
Kate.
should have gone back to my scriptures.
Just joking.
In General Conference, they always announce new temples. And so this last General Conference, I believe it was either 13 or 15. You'll have to correct me if I'm wrong if you're listening to this. But they just announced a whole bunch of new temples that are going to be they're going to build and dedicate, one of which will be here in Utah. There's usually one in Utah. So Spanish Fork, you and me, as soon as it's dedicated, we're going to go to one of those open houses. Field trip to a temple, an open house where they get to show the public how wealthy they are, how holy these buildings are with their $1 billion chandeliers.
Spanish Fork. There's one they just built in Orem. Is that
There's one in Orem. There's one in
That's
Orem.
like right next to each
I know
other.
there's one in Payson. There's one in Provo.
There's one here.
There's one here. Like, they don't need more temples, but I think what the church is doing with General Conference is they're trying to promote this feeling of growth. Like, look at how much we're growing. They're not.
But they're not. And
They're not.
I saw a post about that. I saw just a few, and we'll talk about one later, but there was a post about everything that they said about, look, when all other churches are shrinking, we're growing. And the people, everyone commented, was like, this math doesn't math. Like,
no.
oh, are you counting the children that you're baptizing or who aren't even baptized yet? Like, who are you counting in these numbers? Because it doesn't actually quite foot with like what's happening.
Right. Have you not seen how many people are making this exit from the church? Because there are a lot of us.
And a lot of like even empty. We went for a hike last weekend. My in-laws were in town and we drove out to go hiking because that's our church on Sundays. We go out into nature. I'm not religious, but that is a feeling of spirituality to me. So we went for a hike, but we drove by several churches. One, I think, like, is defunct now, which is weird. The parking lot was totally empty. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? No one is at this church. I think that one might be defunct. But then there were some other ones that we saw with like a pretty meager crowd in them, like not full, which was really interesting. So, and I don't know all of the numbers, but people were commenting that might not be an accurate picture of what's happening.
But they love to talk about the growth,
Of course.
even if it's not true.
The Mormon church says things that aren't true? Kate? What?
Totally what it is. Oh God. But yeah, so that's one thing. They will always announce temples that are going to be built. And I remember like listening in conference, and someone was, and you know, everyone's excited where the temple's going to be built, and they will announce like, and now a temple will be built in such and such a town, Brazil, and then there's like someone in the background like woohoo, like shouting, and they're like, let's remind everyone to be reverent, please. Like they will shut down joy
Oh,
about the temples.
because there's no joy really
No,
allowed.
no,
And
no, no.
I don't know if we've even said this, but what's the you're allowed to laugh very loudly and experience joy, right?
No,
We
no.
talked about that.
In the temple where you have to like
Or anywhere,
avoid
right?
loud laughter and evil speaking of the Lord. Yeah, that's a thing.
You're not allowed to have, what is the phrase? No loud laughter?
No loud laughter, evil speaking the names of the Lord's anointed, the taking of the name of God in vain, or every other unholy and impure practice. I've been through the temple, y'all. I got this thing down. But anyway, moving on. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some historically cringy / controversial talks that were given over the pulpit in general conference. I'm just going to touch a few that have happened in my lifetime, not all of them. So Boyd Packer was one of the 12 years ago. He's since passed, but in 2010, he gave a super duper duper homophobic talk. Do you think?
I'm shocked.
Yeah, you should be so
Really
shocked. So he would talk. Here's what I found online. It says, so speaking on live on Sunday morning, Elder Packer said, some suppose that they were preset and cannot overcome what they feel are inborn tendencies toward the impure and unnatural. Not so. Why would Heavenly Father do that to anyone? Remember, he's our Heavenly Father. So in other words, he's saying God would not make mistakes. Therefore, homosexuals are the mistake. They're choosing to be a mistake.
But didn't God make the homosexuals?
No, that's what he said. Why would Heavenly Father
So
do
God
that
didn't
to
make the
anyone?
people. That's what I'd say to him. God didn't make the people?
No, no,
But
no.
You're saying God made the people, but now you're saying he didn't.
No, what
He
he's
just didn't make the people that you don't like.
no, he made those people. But the point is, like,
That
Heavenly
they
Father
chose.
would not do it. They chose to be homosexual. They chose this lifestyle. They were deceived by Satan. Then
God would come down and she'd punch him in the face.
she would totally put him in the face. But anyway, after they present this live to audience of millions around the world, then they publish it in like the Enzyme, which is the church magazine, like I said. So they published that text, and so he would say, some suppose that they were present and cannot overcome what they feel are inborn temptations toward the impure natural. Not so. Remember, God is our Heavenly Father. So they changed tendencies to temptations, and they cut out the whole part of like, why would Heavenly Father do that to anyone? Because they knew that that would not be received well by audience. So they changed the language from what was said in conference to what was published later on.
And what? Okay, so was that was the same year
Same
that
talk.
they did that?
The same
and
talk.
what they published.
Same year. So that was a little controversial. Going on to some other controversial things was, oh God, and this guy, he even spoke at my sister's. No, he spoke at my sister's funeral, and he's a bit of a douche. Richard Scott, who was he's since passed, but in 92 and 2008 he gave this talk about abuse, and I think I mentioned this in one of our previous episodes where he said the victim must do all in his or her power to stop the abuse. Most often the victim is innocent because of being disabled by fear or power of authority to defend her, but at some point in time the Lord may prompt a victim to recognize a degree of responsibility for abuse. Like, my God. That is a controversial talk in that, no, it's not a controversial talk. It is a fucked up, absolutely wrong, victim blaming, shitty talk that should be revoked.
If you're getting abused, think about why that is. What have you done
Oh my God.
to bring that on yourself?
But that's the mentality they teach in the church. That is
I know.
absolutely the mentality.
Well, because again, they have to spin everything to bring you back in. So instead of validating and recognizing abuse for what it is, which is 100% on the shoulders of the abuser,
Right.
they have to say, how do we make this their fault? So they need the church more. They need this smack that is the church. How do we do that? How do we spin this to our advantage? I know. We'll tell them that
get
it's their
Richard
fault.
Scott to speak. That's what we do. We get him to speak. That's it's so fucked up.
It's so fucked up, and it's so horrendously damaging. I can't
Right.
imagine hearing that. And think about all the people who are in that culture, part of that organization, who have experienced some level of abuse, sitting there hearing that and going,
Oh, what did I do?
I can fix it. I can fix my abuse. I must have brought this on me. What can I do to make myself better?
You just described my life. Let's move on. 2015 was a big year. There was a woman by the name of Kate Kelly. I think I mentioned her a little bit to you because in that evening session of conference on Saturday, they would alternate, like, now it's for the boys, now it's for the women, now it's for the boys, now it's for the women. So there was this woman, Kate Kelly, who was like, I don't like that. You know, why is it that men get the priesthood? Why is it that men get these special privileges? Why is it that men speak at the men's conference and men speak at the women's conference, but women only get to speak at the women's conference? It's not fair. So she got a bunch of girls or women with her that were supportive, and they like showed up at general conference and said, we just want to go in and see what's being said at priesthood session. And the leaders were like, no, you can listen to it later. You can go to your stake center. You can watch it there. You're just not allowed to come in. And she's like, but no, that's not cool. And so she kept pushing
And then
back.
the church acquiesced, right? And said, we've been so wrong. And you guys are so, your service is so needed by the church. So yes, we would love
Listen
right?
to me laugh as I say, no, they excommunicated her. They excommunicated her. So in 2015,
Of course they did.
Kate Kelly was excommunicated. John DeLynn, who's the host of Mormon Stories podcast, he was excommunicated as well. It was a big year for excommunication in there. And that was the year where during conference session on Saturday, someone will stand up and say, all right, we propose that you sustain your leaders of the church. Like we propose that you sustain all of these men as prophets, seers, and revelators, and they have revelation. So raise your right hand to the square if you agree. And if not, let us know. And in 2015, there were 5 people in general conference that stood up and they said, oppose. And they had to have balls of steel to do that.
Oaths of steel, maybe.
Or oaths or whatever of steel. They had like genitalia of steel is what they had.
Labia of steel. Ouch, that sounds painful.
They were very, very brave to get up there and say,
Yes.
I'm
I
sure
can
they were
imagine.
shaking in their boots as they did this, as they're surrounded by 21,000 other people who are like, what the fuck? And even me on TV, I watched on TV, was like, what? Someone is opposed? And what they did, guess what the church did? They were like, go talk to your local leaders. We don't want to deal with you. If you have any questions, go talk to your stake presidents. Go talk to your bishop. Go take any concerns you have to someone who's not us, because we don't want to have to deal with you.
We do not give a fuck.
Pretty much, just like we don't give a fuck. And I'm pretty confident they've all left the church by now. If they're still in, listen to this. Come on
If you
out. We'll
happen
help
to
you
be
out.
listening,
Yeah.
reach out to us because we would love to have
We
you on the
would
podcast.
love to have you on our podcast.
That would be amazing.
And we want to hear
their
about your
story.
labia of steel. That would be amazing. Sorry if that was inappropriate. Just scratch that part out.
If you're listening, you've probably come to know us by now and expect the inappropriate. If not, maybe tune out.
Right. So other controversial things is, in that same year, there was a leader named Kevin Durant who gave a talk to us. It was called Ponderize the Scriptures. Oh, he gets this. Aaron gets this. So we have a guest here. It's so fun watching you. We've got like a studio audience. Yeah, come say hi. This is our friend Aaron. Aaron. Oh, you got to say hi in the microphone, Aaron.
Hi, everybody. I'm Aaron. I'm from Seattle. I'm an Exmo as well.
Yes, and he's amazing. So it's so fun to watch as I'm talking to you, Erika. He's back there just like nodding his head vigorously. Yes, yes, yes. Can I ask you real? We'll have
We'll
like
have him on. We'll have him on
we'll have him on later.
That's very well.
But just real quickly, like, when did you leave?
I left probably about like maybe 3-4 years ago. About 3 or 4 years ago, I think, is about when I left.
So you do remember the Ponderize talk?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Okay, so he's nodding his head there. He remembers the Ponderize talk. So, because this was back in 2015, this general authority speaks, and he's like, "Yeah, we need to ponderize the scriptures." And we're like, "Ooh, look at new vocabulary. That's so cool. I'm gonna ponderize the scriptures."
I want to tenderize the scripture.
I do too, but you have to hear the rest of the story. So as soon as that talk was finished, immediately after conference, there was a website that came up with merch, where you could buy merch with the word ponderize on it that had never been mentioned before. Who knew about this? Oh, his family. They're like, oh, dad's going to give a talk. He has a captive audience of millions. We're going to market.
Let's capitalize on that.
To capitalize on it. And so there was a huge there was huge, what is the word? Feedback. Flashback.
What's happening?
Is it lashback?
Clapback?
I might be a little drunk right now. There was a huge lashback of people were like, oh, that's not okay. And then the website came down. But I remember at the time, like, who the fuck, like, capitalizes off of their dad's conference talk? Oh, Mormons. That's who does.
Although
Mormons
now
do.
I do kind of want to make a t-shirt that says tenderize the scripture. Maybe we can like donate all proceeds to like some like Mormon therapy.
Yes.
Something
I'm
like
sure we
that.
could.
That would be really
How
fun.
about it? Tenderize the scriptures.
What do you
I
guys
would
think?
love to tenderize the scriptures. Yes.
With like one of those. Oh my God, we're so doing this.
Oh my gosh, why not? We didn't think that would have been a trying moment for us to tenderize the scriptures.
We're doing that in a
so
future
doing that.
episode. Tune in. We're going to tenderize the scriptures. Okay, go
Where
on.
does backlash, by the way? Okay. Backlash.
We're like lashback.
Flashback.
We're really tired, you guys. We worked all weekend.
Woo!
and
I wrote it
yesterday
down.
was
Hello. All right. Other controversial talks was, and I mentioned this in a podcast before, I think, an episode where we talked about the year 2020 when the world was going to shit, right? And our prophets.
What happened in 2020 again?
Well, you'll never remember. Yeah. Well, with the whole thing with the world shutting down, we were in so much turmoil and chaos and social distancing and people telling us to like insert Clorox
Confusion
it was
and
so-
pain and
right. And our prophet,
fear.
seer, and revelator, Russell Nelson, we were looking to him, like General Conference came and we're like, okay, our prophet, seer, revelator is going to give us some guidance. Like he didn't warn us of this pandemic, but he's at least going to help us go through.
And you would think, as a prophet, you'd probably have an idea that this was coming because you're a prophet, and that's what you do as a prophet. You prophesize things, but he missed that
didn't.
one.
He missed that one. But we're like giving the benefit of the doubt. Like, oh, God's not going to tell us everything. He's not going to hold our hand. Whatever.
No, she's not.
No, she's not. But as for this conference, I remember like waiting, bated breath. Like, what's he going to tell? And he's like, yeah, when this pandemic's over, we encourage you to go back to church and go to the temple more. And oh, but guess what? I have to read it here. We're going to read the restoration of the fullness of the gospel of Jesus Christ, a bicentennial proclamation to the world. And he filmed himself in the sacred grove where Joseph Smith supposedly saw God the Father and Jesus Christ. And he
In
read
Missouri?
no, that was in New York.
Oh.
It was in Palmyra. You don't know enough about church history. Oh, we're gonna
I
school
thought
you.
Jesus like was in Missouri in the Garden of Eden and all that.
That's another episode for another time. That's
Sorry.
where he's coming
I
back.
digress.
But I remember he said in this video, just like, the sacred grove is so great, and we just need to dedicate our commitment to Joseph Smith and this first vision and one thing and another. And I remember feeling so disappointed after that conference. Like, why didn't he give us any direction? Well, because he'd planned this talk months before,
And he didn't feel like
and he didn't feel like
rewriting it.
changing anything. So yeah, we'll figure it out. Oh, maybe, by the way, maybe wear a mask. And that was another thing. Like, he was like, wear a mask. I'm like, cool, you're my prophet. You know what I mean? That was political. Maybe we should scrap that. But
No, I think that's fine. Like that's, I mean, no. Well, we're keeping that. That
He
that is insane at that time
oh, sorry.
when the world was sort of crashing and burning and people were confused. Millions of people were dying.
Yeah.
It was not a good time for the world. And
No.
a time when you would hope that your spiritual
sorry.
leaders would have something to say about it. So that is, I can see why that would be a huge disappointment and point of contention and confusion for you.
Right. I was so disappointed, but then I felt guilty for feeling disappointed. Why am I guilty? Like, he's a prophet of God. Like,
And
I
don't
should just-
criticize them even when
I
they're
should
wrong.
just doubt my doubts. is what I
And
was
doubt your doubts.
Yeah. A couple of other controversial topics, super fast. Elder Rundland in 2022 in the women's session, because of course the men speak in the women's session.
He came to mansplain.
Yeah, because women can't speak.
Yeah, well, they did, but they'd have to have men presiding, right? But he gave a talk about Heavenly Mother because a lot of people have been asking about Heavenly Mother. And he says in his talk, very little has been revealed about Mother in Heaven. But what we do know is summarized in a gospel topic found in our gospel library application. So in other words, I'm not going to talk about it here. Go read that for yourself. Once you've read what is there, you will know everything that I know about the subject. I wish I knew more.
Tell me, can I say this?
Do it. I don't know what you're saying, but go for it.
Yeah, you do. Well, you'll know in a second. Tell me you don't know how to find the clit without telling me you don't know how to find the clit. I don't know much about this like woman chick or whatever in heaven. And I'm like a leader in the church and she like kind of exists or something, but I don't know. Maybe because she doesn't like you and she doesn't want to reveal anything about herself. So she's tucked herself away into the farthest reaches of the celestial kingdom.
Good job. I'm so proud of you for adding that article.
She's schooling me. I keep referring to it as celestial kingdom. And she's like, no.
There's an article in there, Erika. Come on. Anyway, he said in this talk, like, I don't know. I'm a prophet, seer, and revelator, but I don't know.
But women, am I right?
But he also said in this right here, seeking greater understanding is an important part of our spiritual development, but be cautious. Reason cannot replace revelation. He then said,
yes, I don't like use reasoning or anything.
No, but then he said, like, just to remind you, we don't pray to Heavenly Father. I mean, sorry, let me restate that.
Wishful thinking.
Wishful thinking. No, but
I believe they call that a Freudian slip.
I think that was a Freudian slip. But anyway, he said, just need to reiterate, we don't pray to Heavenly Mother. So here I'm thinking like prophet, seer, revelator, mansplaining a woman's role in the church to a bunch of women. Just erasing Heavenly Mother. Like, I wish I knew more. I'm not going to take the responsibility of finding out more.
And don't talk to her about it.
And don't talk to her about it. You just need to read what we have written down and end of story, done.
Can you see why I love this church?
Can you see why I love not being in this church? And that wasn't facetious or sarcastic at all.
I'm sorry. I'm from the East Coast.
Ooh.
Sarcasm is in my DNA.
Yes, it is. It is. So those were some controversial talks in the past, but we want to talk about one controversial talk that was given this last weekend.
This one's
and
fun.
I'm gonna let you talk about it. Go for it.
Yeah, I know nothing about General Conference except for things that I'm learning now, what I learned being there, and then I am on all these sort of like Mormon Facebook groups because of what we're doing here. So I learned about one of the things that was talked about in this session, and all of the ex-Mormons were like, had the same response I did, which was, like, it's so gross. And what's weird is it's like visiting the upside down for a moment, because everything that they're like, isn't this beautiful and sacred and wonderful, to me is like, ew. Like, it's so awful. So
the speaker, just so you know, was Neil Anderson. He's one of the Quorum of the 12. He's one of the Quorum of the 12. He's one of the big guys. So
I saw his talk, or this like a section of this talk.
Yeah.
That someone posted on social media.
Right.
So what happened apparently is, and they held this up as this beautiful sanctimonious story. A woman, a family, a husband and wife were together, married, whatever. And he apparently had an affair and sadly ended up knocking his mistress up. Fine. His mistress wanted to have an abortion because, for whatever her reasons are, he didn't mention her because she's inconsequential. She doesn't matter anyway. She's just a dirty slut. So she wanted to have an abortion, and his wife, being the sacred, honorable, beautiful,
she was looked at being as like a really holy, sacred, self-sacrificing woman, and wow, we should totally admire her for this.
Yeah, we should admire her. So she said, please, please, please don't have an abortion. Bear this child that you don't want to have. Bear the inconvenience and the pain and the disruption of your body and your life and everything, and be split open in excruciating pain to have this baby
And be shamed by the community around you for being a single pregnant woman.
you dirty fucking slut.
Absolutely.
Do that. Have the baby because I want you to, because I'm so sanctimonious. Give it to us, and my husband and I will raise the love child that he had with you. And the church held this up as this beautiful story, and everything about it gave me the squicks. It made me just want to puke. Abortion is not an alternative to raising a child. It's an alternative to pregnancy. And this poor human, I don't know who she is, I can't speak for her, but I know that she did want to have an abortion. So she did not want to be pregnant. I can speak as a person who has not wanted to be pregnant. And it's not about not wanting a child, which I also don't, but I also don't want to grow a human in my body and then have my vagina split open in excruciating pain and causing permanent damage to my body. And this woman probably felt similarly. They totally glossed over the fact that this man cheated on his wife. That wasn't even a part of the story. There was no
Inconsequential.
shaming of him. No talk about that. Whereas you can bet your sweet fucking ass, if it was her, there would have been shame, shame, shame,
Well,
shame.
even the language he used in the talk was like, and this unmarried woman became pregnant. Like it was her fault.
She became pregnant praying.
It's not like
nothing to do with it.
she became pregnant. Yeah, here's how you become pregnant is we
like
all
this-
know about the birds and the bees.
It's like the Handmaid's Tale. Her fault.
Her fault. Her fault.
It's all her fault. She got pregnant all on her own without the help of this married man
Yeah.
who impregnated her.
Yeah.
And everything about the story just made me feel really, really icky and gross, which is hilarious to me that the church upholds it as this beautiful story of sacrifice and just and holiness and sacredness, and it just makes me want to vomit. And you have a similar story.
Yeah, I did want to say this too, is when I heard that story, it reminded me of a situation I was in when I married my second husband.
Similar but different, I should say. Sorry.
It's similar but
Not
different.
like that.
No, I have not been. Never mind. So I could kind of get a feel for that conditioning for the woman who's a wife. The wife here is conditioned into thinking it is a sacred, holy practice to raise her husband's love child, which probably went against everything in her being. Do I really want to be reminded of my husband's infidelity the rest of my life?
Poor kid.
Every time I look at this child, I'm reminded of my husband's infidelity. And there's this chapter of this, maybe there's this little blip in the history of the life where Elder Anderson here, Neil Anderson, was saying yeah, I talked with them and wow, this was beautiful. But that was one little blip. She probably had anger come up. She probably had resentment for this child. She probably had resentment for her husband. This has to be such a frustrating situation and a violation of anyone's boundaries whatsoever. If I want to choose a child, it's not going to be with my husband's love child. It's just not. It's just no. Boundaries are boundaries, and I don't think that anyone in their right mind would do this. But she
didn't have a choice, probably.
Well, maybe she
did.
Well, let's talk about a choice. So my situation was this. I divorced my first husband, immediately met my second husband, and of course we had to get married 6 months later because that's what you do when you're horny and you're desperate. And your bishops are saying, yeah, you got to get married.
You
right
better
now.
do this. And what you've told me is your bishop said to you when you sat down with him, you need to get married as soon as possible. You guys are going to sin.
Yeah.
And it's another control tactic of the church. Ooh, keep them in, get them married because you're going to sin. And by sin, I mean touch each other.
Yeah. Because sex outside of marriage is second
Dirty.
to murder. No, it's second to murder.
Second to murder.
Yeah. There's Aaron over there just nodding his head yeah, he gets it. It's not just me. So in this situation, I meet the second husband. And I have to give him props. When I met him and I was like, oh my gosh, I've got these situations that are going on. He was like, yeah, that must be really hard. And I was like, tell me more. Because he had a lot of great empathy. And in hindsight, I realized, I was looking for a therapist and I found a husband instead. And it was just not a good place to begin with. But to go to this story of how it relates to this woman is when I met him, he was living in his ex-wife's house with his kids, his 3 kids from his first marriage. She was living in her parents' house while they were on a mission. So she was kind of the caretaker, while they were away on a 2-year mission. He was there. So my ex-husband says to me when we were dating, like, yeah, we could probably benefit by saving up a little bit more for a house. What if you were to move into this house with me? And I'm like, I don't know that I feel good about this, because not only was it the ex-wife's house, it was ex-wife's neighborhood where her sister lived 5 houses to the west. Her brother lived around the corner. Her other sister lived 2 blocks the other direction. And her parents' house, where the ex-wife was living, was just a couple of blocks away. It was like this family compound that I was moving into. And this was the ward that this woman went to, this ex-wife went to. And I felt like, okay, the good thing for me to do is to move into this. I'm being too selfish by thinking that I should want to like care for my own mental health and my own well-being. I'm going to do it. So I moved into my husband's ex-wife's house to raise his 3 children, with in addition to my own, in this ward where everybody knew that I was like the new woman, the other woman. The first Sunday we went to church, the ex-wife sat on the bench with us, and I had to put on this face like, look at how righteous and holy I am. And this woman, if she doesn't get married again, she's going to be my sister wife in heaven. And I need to sacrifice everything that is screaming inside me that this is not okay, to be a better person for her. I was called to be in the Relief Society presidency. I was the secretary, and I lasted a few months before my mental health took a nosedive. But you would think it would.
Of course.
Even though, I mean, and nothing against this family. They were super nice, kind, wonderful people. Being in that situation where I was the other woman trying to start a new life with a new husband and having all of these eyes on me as the new woman, I couldn't last like a few months, and then I asked to be released. Like, I cannot be. I would only go
Did
to
they
second
release
meeting.
you?
They did.
Oh,
They
that's
did.
good. That's
But it
good.
was when I went to them sobbing in tears, like, I cannot do this. And I can't even explain to you why I can't. I think I'm going to blame it on me and my depression is what I'm going to blame it on. I'm going to blame it on me and my depression. I'm not good enough. I'm not strong enough. You need to release me. And I would only go to sacrament meeting for a little bit, and then I would come home and just feel like shit for not being good enough to be part of this community. So when I heard the story of this woman that took on her husband's love child, I was like, that was me. I felt like I had to sacrifice what I felt was good and right and was protective of me and my mental health and my well-being for the good of this stranger that I owe nothing to her. I owe nothing to her, but because I want to be good in the eyes of God and the eyes of church, I'm going to sacrifice my mental health and my well-being. And it sucked. So when I look at stories like that, I get you, I hear you, and it's awful, and it's so fucked up that that's church. That's what the church convinces you that you need to do.
And I'm sure if they had gotten a hold of your story, they would have held it up as a story.
Oh, look at what Kate did. What a
righteousness.
righteous woman she was to sacrifice her good. I hate the word sacrifice. Can I tell you how much I hate that word? I fucking hate the word sacrifice, because it's not a choice. It's not like a priority. Prioritize would be a better word. Like, I prioritize this, but to sacrifice is like, listen to your instincts and say, fuck those instincts. My instincts, fuck those. They don't know. They don't know as well as God knows, or as well as the church or the leaders know. God, it makes me so mad. So anyway, moral of the story is, if your body and your instincts are screaming no, you listen to them. You listen to them. And you save yourself years of mental health challenges.
And
Amen.
moral of the story part 2 is fuck General Conference. And fuck
Right.
Brigham Young. And fuck, who's the prophet right now?
Russell Nelson.
Yeah, fuck him too. Yeah.
Yes. Fuck them all. That was really cathartic. Thank you for letting me share that.
Yeah, I'm glad that you shared. I've heard a lot of it before, but I think it's great to see you go through the catharsis. It's great to see you come through on the other side. And I'm happy to be a witness of your journey. I'll bear my testimony for you that you
Don't you dare use those words, woman. If you dare say bear my testimony, I'm going to punch you.
How about I'll bear my ass? How about that? Is that better?
Totally bear your ass.
In support of your journey right now. I will bear my ass in support
Thank
of
you.
your journey.
Thank you.
There we go. I got you.
Wow.
I think we might be at about time, right?
Probably over, yeah.
So we should probably say, do you have anything else to add? I don't want to cut you off. Do you have anything else to add for this one before we sign off?
Just that, like, I'm so glad that I have the freedom to not listen to those sons of bitches. I'm sure they think they're doing what's best, but they really look closely, they can see what fucking harm they do to so many people.
We spent the day with friends and in the sunshine and wandering around some flowers and just outside and having a like super lovely time instead of listening to this propaganda, shameful, harmful drivel. We had a really wonderful day in the sunshine, and I think that's so much better than
Hell yeah.
high five. What we were gonna say?
Yeah. So as we plan to go back to General Conference in October, 6 months from now, we'd like to hear from you what kinds of questions you would like us to ask members, protesters, anyone who has been associated or is found anywhere near General Conference or the conference center or Temple Square that day. If you have any questions you'd like us to ask, please let us know, and we will.
Yeah. Anything. I think mostly we would have engaged with people coming in or out. We didn't end up doing a whole lot of that yesterday
Because she went to go speak to the sister missionaries. I'm like,
I
I'm
was
not
like,
ready for it
okay,
yet, but I'll
I'll
get
be
there.
good.
I'll get there.
Yeah. So, and whoever we can talk to, I think it might be easier to talk to people coming out. I don't know how many people even will talk to us, but I would love to ask some questions. We'll have some questions of our own, but if you have questions that you would like us to ask them, let us know, and we will ask them if we have that
For
opportunity.
sure.
So let us know.
Yeah.
But until then, right? Are we?
Yeah.
Did you have anything else?
Nope, I think that's
Okay.
it. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. If you've enjoyed this, if you'd like to share your own experiences with General Conference, please let us know in the comments. Send us a message. Let us know how you feel.
Two No Mo's on Facebook.
Two No Mo's on Facebook, but even just give us a review, a like, whatever, share our content. We would be so deeply appreciative of that. So we're wrapping up for now. But until next time, cheers to deconstructing Mormonism.